Okay, I'm assuming it works well. Okay, so let's start off with the session now. Uh, so hello everyone. Good evening to one and all present here. My name is Sahil Asawa and I am a student member at Student Welfare Group. On behalf of HWG, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to Off-Campus Talks. We have gathered here with an esteemed panel of experts who have bagged off-campus internships in various profiles such as consult, software, finance, product, data and ML, and have taken their time to share their insights with us on the same. Through this session, we will be providing clarity about the process of off-campus internship application process, resume building, and some of the most raised questions by student community. Further, we will also be taking questions or any queries from the audience. So make sure to be attentive throughout the session and have your questions ready towards the end. Off-campus internships can be applied at various times throughout the year. For example, during various job openings, during online applications, as well as through LinkedIn or during research initiatives. It's our immense pleasure to have with us today a distinguished table of panelists who bring a great amount of knowledge to us and are willing to embark the same on their juniors by sharing their insights. Now let's start with a brief introduction to all our panelists. Our first panelist is Mr. Keval Mehta, who bagged internship in finance profile in companies such as Orios Venture Partners, JM Financials, and ICICI Securities. Our second panelist is Mr. Kinjal Sen Sharma, who was successful in getting internships in data profile, off-campus in Microsoft, Vadwani AI, and MyTax. Our third panelist is Mr. Yatindra Indoria, who has excelled in software and backend field and has interned in AdPushup and Trumio through off-campus application. Our fourth panelist is Ms. Roshni Biswas, who has worked in Consult Profile and bagged off-campus internships in Big Four such as KPMG and Deloitte. Lastly, we have with us Mr. Vishal Gohil, who has worked in Product Profile at companies like Adani Group, Zetwork, Lambda Test by off-campus applications. Once again, we thank each one of them to mark their presence in this session. We ensure that by the end of the session, not only will you gain a whole lot of knowledge about off-campus internships, but also gain fun day and better understanding about resume building and knowledge about various job profiles. So without further ado, let's begin with our session. Thank you for joining us today and hope you enjoy the session. Now, we would like the panelists to share their experience in applying for off-campus internships and selection in your dream companies. I think we can start with Yatindra.
Okay, thanks. So, as mentioned, I'm Yatindra Indoria, and the field which I worked in is software, backend, a little bit of data engineering, basically. So, how I bagged my internships is the first one at Art Pushup was basically a bit of a cold approach via LinkedIn and then discussion with one of the members in the engineering team. My second internship was again in the same company, and it was a return offer after my first internship. My internship at Trumio was bagged via the mail by the PR chair. Like Trumio reached out via that, and I applied and basically got selected. And I'm again interning with Trumio as a return offer to my first internship. Something else which I'll talk about is two other experiences. During the summer of 2023, I was in the final round of selection for iRage Capital, which is a high frequency trading company. And that application was put in via referral. And I'm currently in process for another big hedge fund. And it's a winter internship opportunity, and it's a like fairly popular hedge fund with $1 billion asset under management. And that was again done via referral program. So,
Next, I
should
guess
I
Kinjal
continue with
can
the
share.
details, or yeah, Kinjal can start.
Next, Kinjal share his experience.
Sure thing. Thank you for the lovely introduction. So basically, like you can see, so I did my internships in Vadwani, Microsoft, and through the MyTax program. So firstly, so there are basically two types of companies, right? One that has a proper referral system, one that doesn't basically. So like in the case of Microsoft, what I did was, so I just pinged in an alum from Microsoft and got a referral, and that's it. So this happened before my CDC, and so after CDC, then I got a mail from Microsoft stating they wanted to interview with me. So that's how the Microsoft thing happened. And with Vadvani AI, so Vadvani AI doesn't have a proper referral system, right? So I applied through the LinkedIn portal, but then again, so if I would have just done that, I probably wouldn't have backed the offer. So what I did was I pinged the principal research scientist at Vadvani AI, and I just, so while pinging also, you just have to make sure a bit that you're writing something about the scientist itself, right? So I just did some background research on what the scientist was working on, and referred to that while writing that cover letter, right? So I put in that mail, and that scientist also forwarded that mail to the HR. So that's how I got the offer from Vadvani AI. And for my tax, there's an entire program, like, so they have this, so my tax every September. So this year it's already ended for the ones that are targeting for the next for the coming years. What happens is next year, every year they open a portal at September, and they give you this list of projects, and you have to shortlist some 7 projects, and after that you have the further rounds. So yeah, that was my experience in bagging these 3 interns.
Next, I guess Keval can share his experience as well.
Hi everyone. Thank you for having me here. So I'm Keval Mehta, fourth year undergraduate student from Chemical Engineering Department with specialization in Financial Engineering. I have received an on-campus summer internship from Nomura in their global markets team, and prior to this, I did few off-campus finance internship like venture capital internship at Oreos Venture, private equity internship at Everstone Group, uh, investment banking internship at SBI Caps and ICICI Securities, and equity research internship at JM Financial. Now talking about how I got all these internship, like I got all these internship to same process like LinkedIn. I reached out to MD, VP, partner level employees of more than 50 to 60 finance firms, and like when I just kept on messaging them frequently, like every 2 to 3 months, and if any opening comes up, they just texted me and scheduled my interview. Then like for all these firms, I had one interview, one HR interview, where they discussed more about my experience and what I did and how my skills can be relevant for their job descriptions. So like most of these internship I got through LinkedIn only. I never did any cold mailing sort of things. So LinkedIn usually works for finance firms.
Next, we would like Roshni to share her experience on the same.
Hi everyone. Thanks, Sahil, for the lovely introduction. So yeah, so my first internship was in KPMG. So I was basically looking for a winter internship last year when I thought that maybe a Big Four would be something that I would like to have on my CV. So I got a referral from one of my seniors who had interned in KPMG previously, and that's how I reached out to that person, and directly mailed the person, and I got that internship at KPMG. It was a remote internship that I pursued during my semester since there was some delay from their part, so I could not actually visit their office. And later on, I thought that since it was remote, I did not really have any client facing experience, which is actually recommended if you are in consult. So that prompted me to apply to another Big Four, which is Deloitte. So this time I was kind of motivated that I'll go to their office and experience any project that they have. So for Deloitte, I started mailing. I did an internship at Deloitte during this summer, that is the 2023 summer. So I started reaching out to all the directors, partners, and managers from Deloitte starting from February. It was via LinkedIn. So I reached out to them, and obviously make sure, I think Kinjal also specified that make sure that you are kind of personalizing any note or any email that you're writing, else nobody would understand that why you are a good fit for the role or why you're actually interested to do that internship. So whenever you're sending a LinkedIn request, also please note that you send a note along with your request. And yeah, so at that time I sent a lot of LinkedIn requests, and some of them got accepted, and I got a few reverts from big fours like UI and Deloitte. In the end, I decided to go ahead with Deloitte, and I interned in their Mumbai office. So yeah, it was a very good experience for 2 months. So I would always recommend that if you are in consult and you're doing an internship in consult, then I would always suggest that go for an on-site role, because remote roles don't offer much in consult. And yeah, for Bain, I got Bain for the next summers via their True North program, which is usually open for all the women students. So the application process starts in April when I applied. The first round consists of an essay that every candidate needs to submit, and the subsequent round, Bain will basically send you a test link. Uh, I think that the same process was followed in CDC as well. They send all the applicants a test link, which everyone had to attempt. And on the basis of the tests and the essay that you write, you get shortlisted for the interviews. There are 2 rounds of interviews in Bain. As far as I know, I think that's the same for on campus and off campus both. The process might differ in BCG and McKinsey depending on like how many interview rounds are usually held. But yeah, for Bain, it's usually 2 interview rounds unless and until the partner who is taking your interview decides to take any more case rounds. So the first round is like a case round or a guesstimate round where you have to yeah, you're given a case or a guesstimate, and then you have to brainstorm on the case and arrive at the solution. And the second round is basically HR round. So unlike technical roles where HR is like not that important, it's like almost you back the internship if you make to the HR round, and it's like a mere formality. In consulting, it's not like that. HR is also equally important when you're getting an internship, because HR kind of declares that you are a culture fit for the company. So yeah, when you are targeting for consulting profile, then you should definitely also prepare for HR very meticulously. So yeah, that's what my experience was.
Thank you for sharing your experience, Roshni. Next, I would like Vishak to share his experience as well in the field of product.
Hey, hi, Sahil. Thanks for the lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. So basically, if I talk about my internship experiences off campus, so basically I start off with my two of the experiences that are not kind of mentioned here. So that were kind of you can say starter for my product pathway. So I started off with working in one of the startup as a kind of you can say marketing intern, and then I jumped to product analyst role in one of the seed stage startups. So that was under one IIM Calcutta alumni. So that was through LinkedIn. So once I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I just got to know about that startup. And that startup was having a good team. So I thought, to why not to apply for this role? So I just applied for that particular role. I got on a call with that particular alumni, and then we had a chat for around 1 hour on a meet, and then I just got onboarded. So yeah, that was my second experience as a product analyst, which was in a seed stage startup. Then talking about my third internship, which is basically Lambda Test. So Lambda Test is basically a B2B SaaS startups, Series C funded, right? So in Lambda Test, I had around 3 rounds of interviews. One was with their senior product manager, one was with their VP products, and one was with their product head, and one with the HR. So that was the Lambda Test internship was again through emailing. That was through emails basically. And apart from that, my another internship at Ubridge Learning. So I had a chat with one of the senior product manager in one of the insurtech company of US. So he kind of, I had a kind of, you can say, a meeting with him just to know what is going on with this in his startup and what products are they working upon. That meeting was not meant to be for getting an internship, but yeah, I was just having a casual chat with him. So kind of he liked my profile and he referred me to one of his friends, and he was looking for a product intern in his company. So yeah, I got an internship in EduBiz Learning through with this way. And talking about my experience at Adani Group. So there's one of our alumni who is kind of CEO of Adani Group currently, and yeah, he came to the campus once. I just messaged him like I'd like to have a meet with you. So I had a meeting with him for around 20-30 minutes, and we had a good time. And then I just built a connection from there, and then I emailed him just around, you can say, 1 month or so, and I got referral from that alumni only. And talking about my last internship experience, that is Network, which is a B2B manufacturing unicorn. So there I worked as a product management intern, and that was my first on-site internship. So that was through one of our alumni who is currently founder there. So he is kind of heading the product team there. So I mailed him, and he kind of forwarded my profile to the product team, and then I got a referral from that alumni only. So yeah, that was all about my kind of, you can say, pathway for getting an off-campus internships. And talking about like LinkedIn or emails, so I'd say mailing is as important as LinkedIn, because these days too, like a lot of corporates, a lot of people prefer mails over LinkedIn. People regularly check their mails. I've seen this in corporate, like people do check their mails regularly. So yeah, that was all.
Okay, so first of all, thank you for sharing your wonderful experiences with us. And as we are off with a good start, let's begin with the questionnaire that the student community has proposed, stating all their various queries and doubts. So moving on to the first question. Okay, the first question has already been discussed a bit, like how should off-campus internship applications be made, and when should one start sending out cold emails, and how do they go about it? Adding on to the same, it would be helpful if you could elaborate on the process of referrals, as you mentioned. So yeah, that's the first question.
I do have some detail to share about referrals basically. So one very important thing which people don't realize is a lot of the roles in many big companies do not even get listed on portals, and they're actually open and you're not even aware. So as Kinjal mentioned, some companies have a actual referral system in place, which is a very big number of companies. In that case, what the person has to do, he has to put your CV up against basically the set of internship roles they have. So whenever they are looking for interns, your CV pops up first. So reaching out to anyone is helpful. One of my internship applications for the hedge fund that I mentioned a little time back happened through a like person who was working in this hedge fund from 1 or 2 years, and he was not even from KGP. He was from another college. I think he was from DTU actually. He liked my profile. I had some discussion with him over LinkedIn, and he put in my CV basically, and there was no opening listed on the company's website, LinkedIn, or anywhere else. That is one thing which I'll like to mention. And the other thing is, one other way to reach out to companies is via the recruiters, but that generally doesn't work, as it is similar to reaching out via some sort of application portal, which also gets a lot of messages. How you do it is you see if someone has been recently hired there. Like let's say if a student recently got an internship at a like startup or any company that you want to work with, so you do know they're probably hiring at this time, it is good to reach out to that person and ask him how he applied. So one of my application also benefited from this. I kind of realized that this company is hiring. I talked to them like who they talk to, like if someone in engineering team, someone in HR. So they basically will direct you to the right pathways in certain sense. So these are two things which I think people overlook fairly often. One is that referrals can come from anywhere. It is good to reach out to as many people as possible, with as much personalization as you can basically afford to have. And secondly, it is also good to like have directed outreach and like looking for the people to contact. And that information you can get from the people who have been recently hired.
Okay, so thank you for sharing and like embarking light upon the referrals part. We can, I guess, move on to the next question now. Uh, okay, so the next question for the panelists is, what was your experience during the interviews, and how is it exactly different from the on-campus interviews or the CDCs? So we would like Roshni and Kinjal to share their experiences on this.
Sure. So, okay, firstly, before answering this, so the thing is, what separates off-campus and on-campus interviews is on-campus interviews are better coordinated, I feel. So you'll get to hear the verdict at the end of the day, right? But in the case of off-campus, nothing is for sure. So what happened with me was I applied for Vadhvani back in September. I got to hear that I was shortlisted on March. I had my interview in May, 2 rounds spread across the entire month of May. Like one round was in the first week, one round was in the end of May. So between this process, I wasn't even sure like did I clear the first round or did I not? So the thing is, you can never be sure that you'll get through. So um, no matter how much you ace the interview, if there's not an opening, they will not take you in, right? Because the funding needs to come from somewhere, right? So that's there. So you just have to keep on applying until you see an offer on your email. So that surety is very less in off-campus interviews. Apart from that, yeah, I think that would be from my side.
Yeah, for me, I didn't have any on-campus interview, fortunately, because I got BAME before CDC internship started. So whatever I've heard from my friends for consult, the process is very, very similar to what it's on campus or it's on off campus. You have the test. In case of BAME, you have a test, and then you have 2 rounds of interviews. Similarly, in case of on-campus internships as well, you have a test and then you have interviews. So just like Kinjal said, you don't know the result very quick in case of off-campus applications. And in case of on-campus, you'll get to know that whether you have made it or not by the end of the day. So that's one difference which was there in my case as well, because BAME took a lot of time to declare the results. So at that time, I had all this uncertainty that whether I'd made it or not. In spite of giving a good interview, I'm never really sure whether you've done all the right things in the interview. There might be something which would have gone wrong from your side. So all these things come to your mind. And yeah, I mean, that's what I don't really have any on-campus interview experience.
Okay, so anyone else would like to add on their like difference in experiences as well? You can.
So like I just
One
want to
small
add.
thing. Yeah, Vishal.
Okay, yeah, just go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so basically, it's kind of important with respect to, let's say, any software or systems role actually. So when you attempt on-campus interview rounds, right, there's a excessively heavy focus on DSA, which is of course present in almost all the rounds. Off campus, there is some DSA part involved, but there's a very heavy focus on like other things. So if you're applying for a relatively higher paying role, you can expect system design and, let's say, heavy focus on language features and previous projects and so on. And for even like moderately paying roles, you can actually expect to be asked basic fundamentals of web design. Like for the backend part, you can expect questions on how to implement a login, what is JWT, what is stateful, stateless, and basic system design, basically. So this sort of thing is generally not asked in on-campus rounds, and most of the focus is on DSA. So I'd say in that sense, the like area from which the questions can be posed, that increases a lot off campus, increasing the amount of uncertainty.
Right. So just I want to add for finance roles, like for finance roles, off-campus interviews revolve more around their requirements. So basically, like if you are getting interviewed through on-campus, like most of their questions will revolve around their CV. But if there's an off-campus interview, they won't be training you because it isn't a structured internship like on-campus internship where there will be 10-15 days training, then the project. So for off-campus internship, they want someone who can start the work immediately. So that's why like your CV should like match with their requirement. Then only you will get a chance of getting an interview. Else, like it's tough getting a on off-campus internship, especially in finance. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to Keval's point that it's basically their matching criteria that whatever requirements they're having, if you make the CV accordingly. So let's say someone has posted some job requirement on LinkedIn, right? you need to prepare your CV, like you need to customize your CV accordingly so that it matches their kind of requirements, right? And basically talking about the interview experience off campus. So mostly what happens is these interviews or these calls are specifically dependent on the type of company or the level of startup you're applying. So if you're applying to some startup which is on, let's say, their seed level or pre-seed level, so they are having not that much organized structure. So you might get kind of an offer just on a call, right? On a call, WhatsApp call, anything. And if you are applying at some big company, a good startup, pre like Series A, Series B, something like that. So they'll have a defined interview process. Uh, they have a defined hiring team will be kind of coordinating with you. And talking about my interview experiences off campus, so that was moreover like uh, uh, two of them were just on a call. Like I had a call with a person for around 30-40 minutes and I got an offer. And talking about two of the company startups, Lambda Test and Edubridge, I had a proper interview process in which I was asked questions around product management, RCAs, and one was from like probability and statistics, and somewhere around I had technical round two where I was asked some questions around system architecture, and then one was around, you can say, one was typically an HR round in Lambda Test as well as Edubridge. So that so I'd say that off-campus internship interviews are not more like are not that much different from on-campus internship interviews, but the process is different. Like that depends particularly on the level of company or the type of company you're applying. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you for sharing your insights on this question. I believe if, like, since the question is clear, we can move on to the next question now. Okay, so the next question raised is, like on campus or the CDC, is there a CGPA requirement for off-campus internships as well? And does the department really matter while applying for off-campus internship? Anyone would like to answer this question?
I would like to answer this question. Um, uh, for consult, there's no specific CG requirement as such, but it's said that if you have a CG above 8, then you're good to go. But for safety, if it's above 8.5, then it's a very big plus. And obviously, and if it's 9 plus, then it's a very big spike. So if it's 8 plus, then you have to make sure that your CV is very, very tailored to your consult profile, and it should have all the relevant experiences, and everything should be in line with your profile. So, and if it's an 8.5 plus, then you have some kind of leeway in the CV which you have. And if it's 9 plus, then it's considered to be a spark. And then for some companies like McKinsey, they have a kind of CG requirement. Though this time I'm not sure how much it was followed, but during placements, I've heard that they had a 9 plus CG criteria. I haven't heard any CG criteria for BCG or Bain, but I've not heard any person who had CGPA below 8 getting a shortlist. So yeah, I would say that maintaining a CG above 8 is a must for consult. And if you have above 8.5, then it's a very good thing. And department doesn't really matter unless and until you have relevant experiences and internships from consult, and you have things to defend when you are applying for the role. I mean, I'm myself from aerospace, and it's it doesn't even come close to what my course and curriculum is teaching me. So I really don't think that the department matters in consult. So yeah.
Yeah, so for data science roles, right, so there's always this bias that it would always be there, right? You'll always have this question that you're not from circuitry department, you're not from maths, or not from CS. So you'll have to have an answer for the question, right? So given you compensate for your low CGPA, or I don't know, from being from a non-circuitry department, you compensate for it with something like, let's say you have a publication on your resume from a very good conference or something else that explains that you've been putting in the work in this particular area, right? So if you have something that compensates for your CGPA or your department, I think you would be good to go.
Um, I have basically with respect to software, what I've noticed is that in terms of CGP and department, the role is there. Like it's not that it's zero. As Kinjal said, like this sort of question has been posed to a lot of my friends. Actually, in startups, people are not really used to IIT people from other departments targeting data or software or so on. So this sort of thing is there. But in my opinion, what matters more than this is the referral, because they have 5,000 applications in their portal. Even if you have exceptional CG and department, they're most likely not even going to read your CV. So a very like large chunk of the application priority actually goes to the referral part as compared to, let's say, the department and CGPA. And I'll go on to say a guy with just 8 CGPA is like gonna do much well with referrals as compared to a guy with more than 9, but he doesn't have proper referrals on his side. That is something which I can very confidently say.
Keval, would you like to add on, like in the
Yes,
finance part
yes,
of the
right.
same?
So for finance, like if you are reaching out to someone through LinkedIn, then there's no asset CG or department requirement. Like what matters for them is your skill set and your prior experience. But like for finance, if you are applying through the portal, then already you are from a engineering background. And what most of the firms prefer is post MBA students. So then they might set a CGPA criteria or a degree criteria basically. So I would say to get a finance internship, applying through a job portal won't work for an undergraduate student. You need to reach out to someone through LinkedIn, or you must have some connection in the industry to get the internship. For that, CG or department won't matter for you.
Anything that Vishal, you would like to add on the same?
Yeah, so talking about CGPA, I'd say CGPA matters, but to an extent for an off-campus opportunity. And department, it doesn't really matter at all. For the product role specifically, they just want a person, a guy who can just get onboarded, start working. So they'll just see your previous experiences, whatever managerial experiences you had in the campus. You're a part of any cell society, any organization, or any event, GC or something. So if you have done some good amount of managerial work where you have managed stakeholders, where you have kind of led a team, or you have like got your work done from various teams. So that's the thing they basically look for in a candidate off campus in the product role specifically. And yeah, so that's it. Basically, that's what from my end.
All right. I guess that we have been clear on the topic of CGP and the department and what role they play in off-campus internship. So I think we can now move on to the next question. Okay, so the next question for the panelists, what in your opinion should be an ideal CV that gives you an edge for off-campus opportunities in your role or in your profile? Uh,
All right, I'll take
I
it
like
first.
this
So,
question. Yeah.
would you like? Okay, okay, I'll finish mine. So firstly, an ideal CV should have some previous internships, some good projects, publication if possible, and yeah, when you're mentioning these projects and your internships, just mention the tech stack and the keywords properly for technical roles, obviously, and also if you're putting self projects, put those projects up in a GitHub repository of some kind, and then put the hyperlinks to the code in the resume if possible. So then that increases the authenticity of your resume. Like, and also if you have like internships on your CV and you signed some non-disclosure agreement with the company or something, then just put up the offer letter or the internship completion certificate on your GitHub and put hyperlinks to it in the resume. So yeah, so all of these things are simple things, but they bring in more authenticity to your profile. Yep, that's it from
So
me.
usually what
okay.
I've seen is people generally use this CDC CV during their off-campus internship. So that's a kind of, I'd say, because CDC CV, wherever you upload, so they don't have basically your contact. So let's say if I've sent my CV to some startup or some company, so how will they try to reach out to me? Obviously, they can reach out to me by replying on the mail, but most of the times they just call you back. So what I'd say is in a CV which you are applying for the off campus, it should include It should include your phone number, your LinkedIn link at the top, your email ID at the top, and yeah, and these links are enough basically. And talking about the academic stuff, so you don't really need to put up your 10th class marks or 12th class marks in your off-campus CV. Just putting your CGPA is enough, and putting up your college is enough. And talking about your internship experiences, so the major focus is on your internships part. So try to put up the internship sections majorly on your CV, whatever work you've done till now in internships. Try to liberate that work. Try to add numbers as much as you can. Like, how will they basically see what impact have you brought in the organization that you have worked previously? So add as much numbers as you can in your CV, and your CV should kind of show impact to that particular person. And there are a few softwares available online tools in which you can kind of measure the impact that a CV is kind of reflecting. So you can use those online software to see if you are not if you have done any mistakes grammatically or in any way. And be specifically for the product roles in the initial internships, you should put up a good POR basically. Uh, Having 1 to 2 PORs is good for the start, because initially people generally don't have any managerial experiences. So you can leverage that POR experience to sort of get your initial internships, and then you can leverage your initial internships to get more internship out of that, right? And yeah, having some good balance of extracurricular activities and uh, academic achievements, just like some having some case studies or stuff, is good enough for an off-campus CV. And yeah, one more thing, just mention the skills, technical skills that you're having. So specifically for the product rules, there are a few technical skills like SQL, Tableau, Power BI, and a few tools like Amplitude, Metabase. So yeah, these are good enough to put in your CV for getting an internship initially. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
so for consult, I would say that for having an ideal CV, you need a few sparks on your CV. The spark can be in the form of anything. I mean, it can be any competition that you have won, or any internship in the Big Four, or any big company, or anything. I mean, any publication. Even if it's not relevant to consult, a publication gives you reliability that, you are good in what you are doing. So that's what they're looking for. And, a high CG is also a spark. And then, yeah, these are a few sparks that I can recall. On the base of this, I would say that consult is something in which your CV plays a very, very huge role. In consult, from thousands of applications, they sort out a few applications just on the base of your CV. So if even if you have prepped up very nicely for the interview, if you don't get your
I'm sorry, is Roshni audible to everyone?
I think she lost her audio.
Oh, okay. Oh, we will get back on to it again. But if anyone else who wants to add on anything to this,
Uh,
they can.
yes, I want to add something that, like what I said earlier, also, like, try to incorporate the JD on your CV through either some self project or course, so that your skill should match their requirement. Because I already said they won't uh, give you any training; they want you to start working immediately. So try to tailor your CV according to the job description. But like, if there's no specific job opening, and you are just simply reaching out to someone through LinkedIn, then consider preparing a more generic CV. This should include like a basic equity research project with few stock pitches, or a VC type project, which include that you have prepared some investment thesis on few startups, uh, or a particular industry. And also, like, a certification like CFA or FRM can give you an edge, because this shows that you have an interest towards finance, but given that you are from an engineering background. But of course, it's not necessary, because I did not have any of the certificate but still got an internship. So certification is not something which is necessary.
Apart from that, I'd say that if you have any company which is you want to get into it by heart, right? So just what you can do is put that JD in ChatGPT, or I'd say use ChatGPT efficiently. Like you can put up JD, you can put up your CV lines, and you can kind of try to match those. Is your CV aligning with that JD or not? So that will kind of refine your CV to an extent.
All right. So thank you for your insights on this question. I guess that might have
There is
given
one thing which I'd
everyone.
like to add.
Sure.
Just yeah, basically, so like as the others mentioned, right? Like role specific preparation is good to do. So as Vishad mentioned, you can align to JD. So in case of software roles, right? Like that sort of translate to getting what kind of technical skills they want. Like I came across this case where this like company in Japan wanted Golang developers at the time, and in one case, another company actually wanted people for a role which required like competence with functional programming. So that sort of thing was suggested by the tasks that they gave via like discussing with seniors and so on. So that sort of thing can like help you. This sort of information can help you by adding similar projects in your CV. So if they're looking for Golang developers in a backend role, they'll obviously prefer a CV with 2 to 3 Golang projects, or let's say something which has Java and C++ projects, or a basic web project. And for off-campus roles, they're basically looking for people to get things done. Like it's as mentioned, it's not an organized internship programs. They're looking for people. So this sort of thing sets you apart in that case.
Okay. Uh, Once again, thanks for like clearing this idea of ideal CV in mind of all the people watching this right now. I guess we can move to the next question now. Okay, so the next question is a bit tricky one. How important is the IT and tag while applying for an off-campus internship program? Uh, Anyone? Kinjal, I guess you can start.
Um, so okay, the only thing I can think of while reading this question is, so you're from IIT Kharagpur, right? There are very few companies out there that don't have alums from IIT Kharagpur. So one big advantage of this particular IIT tag is you'll find alums in almost every company out there. So just reaching out, and obviously, if you reach out to an alum, 90% of the cases he would reply back to you, and he'll try whatever is in his capacity to help you out. So that's one thing that I can think of, or that I can think of.
Anyone else who would like to add on the same?
So I wanted to add that like in finance, like getting a internship basically at a undergrad level is quite difficult. Like hardly 50 to 100 students all over the India get a finance internship at undergrad level. So even IIT tag is not even enough. So most of them prefer MBA, that too from top B school like IIM ABC, ISB, XLRI. So of course, like IIT tag will add value to you, but it's not enough even. But yes, you will always be preferred over someone from other engineering colleges. So yeah.
Adding to Keval's point, so this scenario remains almost same for all the non-tech roles, I'd say. That when you're applying for a non-tech roles, the thing that you need to show is that how being an IIT and being from an engineering background, you are having that managerial skills, the skills which those B school peoples are having, right? So try to align your CV in a way that it shows some managerial experience. And talking about this IIT and tech, so it usually helps uh, most of the times. You can get replies from some senior level folks too. You might I am not sure. Like there are very little less companies that are alumni not working. So try to leverage your alumni network. Our alumni network basically, it it can be your hall alumni. It can be your basically society level alumni or some random alumni you just ping from IIT Kharagpur. You'll surely get a reply. And and you'll get your connection request accepted on LinkedIn. So yeah, maintaining a good LinkedIn and reaching out to alumni and maintaining good connections with them, like asking them what they are doing. These things are necessary. So that's the point that I like to.
Okay, so once again, thank you for answering this question. Uh, I guess we have a clear picture of what IIT and TAG would help us in, as well as the like alumni referrals. So I guess we can move to the next question now. Okay, so the next question for the panelists, does off-campus internship typically offer low packages as some students perceive? And how does it affect your long-term prospects if you accept one with a lower package? Anyone would like to share their experience?
I like to start with this one actually.
Yeah.
So this is something I feel really strongly about because I kind of did not accept like a low paying offer from a well-known company because I had better paying offer from a startup. So basically that's a trade-off that I made. And I've come to realize that this is something which you really need to decide on because sometimes bargaining can be difficult and can cost you your offer. So here are 2 to 3 things which I think you should keep in mind with respect to targeting offers in software or systems field. One is relatively larger companies, be it unicorn startups or be it HFTs or be it let's say Microsoft or so on. They are not very flexible with the stipend. So if let's say they are paying relatively low and still want you to come and work in person, there's not a lot that you can bargain for. But on the contrary, if you're like applying to a startup, it's relatively easier to bargain. Startups are fairly flexible with how much they pay. And if you basically end up reaching out to, let's say, one of the people in managerial positions, an engineering manager or like better yet, director of technology there. So that sort of thing can help you negotiate better offers in some sense. Sometimes the HR themselves offer you better offers. Second thing which I really want to point out is if you are being paid more, that is in startups at least generally reflected in the kind of work that you get. So what I ended up doing is I actually negotiated extensively and got paid fairly well. So like for all my internships, I was paid equivalent to what most day one, day two, like close to what day one, day two internships pay, and that reflected in the quality of projects that I was basically given. So a lot of the interns they were doing basically backend development, API development work. I got to work on a data pipeline which they had to scale basically. It was a migration. It was basically a monitoring pipeline, if I'm not mistaken. And I scaled it from throughput of 40, 50 requests per second to 220,000 requests per second. And they liked my work and gave me a return offer. So this sort of thing, like where they value your work and they give you better projects, is often at times the function of how much they are paying you. So if you're being paid more, you can expect better project and hence better results. But again, you cannot really like bargain too much in relatively like larger companies. So that is something which you need to keep in mind.
Uh, all right. Anyone would like to add on to this in the non-tech profiles? Because this was the tech side.
Yeah, so
Uh,
this is kind of okay, I'll finish it. This is kind of a trade-off, as Yatindra mentioned. I mean, that's something which you need to decide personally whether you want a company. What I've observed is that companies which are relatively renowned offer obviously a significantly lower package as to a company which is a startup and in the growing phase, and they are looking for good people, so they offer you uh, good amount of remuneration. So yeah, I mean that's something in which you have to decide whether in a startup you would like to learn, as I've heard that in startups you have the best learning curve. You are exposed to a lot of tasks and you know how to tackle them. So early exposure to working in a startup can help you build your skill sets a lot more as to when you are in a very established company and you have like boundaries, work boundaries beyond which you do not really have any choice but to do the monotonous same work which you're doing every day. So yeah, some people, that's why I've heard that they actually prefer working in startups initially, and then they later on shift to some well-known companies where they have more job security. Uh, this does not actually affect my long-term prospect. It depends on the person basically. If I have to start off with a very high-paying package, then I have to uh, have those kind of relevant skill sets which will help me back the high-paying job, and then later on, also do the work which I like. So all this has to be maintained. I'm doing the work which I like. On the other hand, I'm also getting a good stipend. So yeah.
Keval, I think you're adding on something to it.
Right. So, like, if you are applying for finance roles and you have decided that you want to enter into finance only, so like getting any internship is a big thing for you. So, if even if you are getting less stipend, like you should go for it, because like for most of my internship, I got a very less stipend as compared to someone interning in a software firm or a data science role, etc. But still, like, those internship added value on my CV, and I got a on-campus internship in Nomura. So like in finance, I would say that you won't be getting a stipend similar to the on-campus ones, but think it from a long-term perspective, like what those internship can add value to your CV. So like even if you are getting a less stipend but a good brand name, I think you should go for it, because finance firms, while shortlisting, look for spikes in your CV, spikes in terms of good brands. So I would say that if you are looking for off-campus finance internship, don't go for like stipend thing. Yeah.
I'll add on to Keval's point that uh, don't look for the stipends basically. So initially, you should look for the stipend when you are in the second year, third year, first half, right? You can do some work at lower stipends too. But when it comes to your final year, you need some security, you need some commitment. So you can like negotiate with the HR, you can negotiate with the concerned person that I won't be working with this much stipend. So if you can kind of increase my stipend or increase some add-ons that I'm getting in my stipend, right? And talking about this lower packages, so yeah, so I've done all these internships and none of them were from CDC, and it was good that I got stipend and PPOs which are comparable to the CDC ones, right? So and one thing about the off-campus internships is the flexibility that you get. So generally, what happens that if you get an internship in CDC, so if you got a PPO, right? So your place, if you're whether you're sitting in placement or not, will depend on your PPO acceptance. That if you'll accept the PPO, you won't be getting the chance to sit for the CDC placement. But if your internship is off campus, you can definitely accept that PPO and try for the CDC placements too. Right. So even if they are paying less in a startup, but you like the work, and that's an off-campus internship, so you can definitely accept that PPO and sit in the placements too. So yeah, that depends basically on the person. So if I'm getting some offer which is paying me more and I'm liking the work, so yeah, I'll definitely accept that particular offer. And this affecting my long-term prospects. So yeah, it doesn't even affect my any of the long-term prospects, because I feel is starting off with a startup is any day better than starting off with some corporate. Because when you want to switch your job, so this I got to know from some of my alumni working in a few startups. So I had a chat with them. So they told me that it's like when you want to switch, so you need to show some substantial amount of work while switching. So in corporates, the work goes very slow. And in startups, you will be working on a project at a very high pace. Yeah, because they want to get their job done quickly. So that's the thing. You can leverage your work very heavily while working in a startup rather than working in a corporate. So yeah, you can always trade off between your package and the role that you are wanting to work in.
Okay. Thank you for answering this question. I think that might have helped people set their priorities in terms of package and like workplace as well. I think if the question is clear, we can move on to the next question now. So the next question for the panelists, recruiters prioritize essential skill sets during interviews. Can you share how students in their final years can develop these skills?
Right, I'll go in first. So whatever I would be saying is specific to the data science profile only. So there's a route that I've always been advising my juniors to follow. So the thing is, firstly, to get your theoretical concepts up. So how do you do that? So Coursera has these two courses. One is machine learning specialization. The second is called deep learning specialization. So to set out in any, if you are planning to have a data science career ahead, these two courses are an absolute must. Like they'll develop your basics, they'll get you ready, right? So for the first, just do the first course, machine learning specialization course, as soon as possible. If you want to pursue a data science profile. And for the second course, when you start doing the second course, is when you should approach your professors and all for machine learning projects and all. So as you do those projects, and you just need to keep doing these courses in parallel. So this is how you would be building your profile, right? And when you're doing these research-based projects, just be very sure, like if there was to be a paper that comes out of the project, you would get the writer rights to it, right, as well, along with the professor, because that would be a huge plus in your profile if you have a publication, right? Because in the future, so the machine learning research based roles do pay a lot, right? So you should be targeting those profiles, and they do take in account if you have a publication or not. So when you're setting forward to do these research interns, be very clear on the terms that you would get proper author credits from the professor once the paper comes out. So when you have these, so let's say you did these 2 or 3 research interns, that is when you should start targeting corporate internships. So the first step would be to like start with a small scale startup of some kind. Like, and when you're doing that, just a smart thing to do would be to just reach out to any KGP alumni that has a startup in this particular domain, and just hit up the founder directly, right? And he will reply. Definitely, he'll reply. And there's a good shot that you'll be able to ace this internship. And once you get these small internships in line, then you target for the bigger fish out there, right? So you slowly and steadily you build up your profile. You then get a mid-tier internship of some kind, and then yeah, that's how the process goes in data science.
Anyone would like to weigh in over here, like in some other profile?
Yeah. So for consult, there's no very well-defined skill sets that are defined, because they would kind of look out for, in consult internships, you basically use Excel the most. Along with that, a few data analysis tools like Power BI or Tableau or SQL or anything. Any data analysis, I mean, it can be pandas as well if you are able to handle those data frames properly. So those kind of skill sets are required because consult is actually wants you to analyze a huge amount of data and get insights out of it. So these kind of data handling approaches are very, very essential. And along with that, I remember, I mean, my Deloitte internship, even though it was a consult internship, I got the internship on the basis of an ML assignment that I had done. So having, basic ML knowledge and data handling approaches, everything comes in handy whenever you're applying for consult as well. So you know how to handle huge amount of data. And I kind of think that consult is also shifting to data driven approaches. And there will be a time when all the consulting companies would also employ data and MLDL in the solutions which they're presenting to clients. So those kind of skills are obviously a plus plus whenever you are going for consult.
One thing which I like to add with respect to like software and systems role is relatively high paying roles actually demand some level of CS fundamentals. So whereas it's, let's say, good to have Flask or let's say Django development experience, some node development experience and so on, which people generally do, and projects. One of the skills which people generally miss out on, especially in non-CS departments, is computer science fundamentals like operating systems, networks, and databases. When you're targeting, let's say, a high-paying company, there will be DSA problems and CS fundamental problems which are generally asked to you, like as compared to, let's say, web development and project-based questions. So that is something to keep in mind, which remains true in off-campus interviews as well.
Sure. Anyone would like to add on anything to this?
Yes,
If I
so
specifically talk about, yeah, sure. Even.
Vishal, go ahead, Vishal.
Acha, so if I specifically talk about the product roles, so there's no any you can say defined skill set that you can put up on your CV. Like for the tech roles, usually what happens if you put up these tools, that tools, so that will show that yeah you have worked on, upon these some good projects you can put up. But if we talk about product roles specifically, so what they check is your first principle thinking, right? So it's all about cracking the interview. So you can develop your first principle thinking by doing some good case studies or by doing some good projects on like there are a few projects available on PM School too. You can go through these projects. The projects are kind of basically different from the case studies in a way. And initially, what you can do is for developing your first principle thinking, you can discuss you should be aware of what is going on in the market, right? So, if you are having, let's say, knowledge of 10 fields, then you can kind of connect uh, uh, these knowledge points to build up your answers. So the thing is, they for the product role specifically, they don't look for any particular high tech skills, but they specifically look if you have knowledge of what is going on in the market, if you are aware of how to get a job done, right? And one of the major thing that a PM interviews revolve around is your stakeholder management. How in your past you have made your work done by your teammates or by how have you bring out some event in your kind of cell society that you have worked in, right? So they specifically want to check if you are having that good managerial skills, talking to the people and getting your job done easily. Because that's the thing. Because PM में mostly यही रहता है, like you just need to talk to the people and get your job done, right? So speaking skills matter a lot in PM roles, I'd say.
Okay. Even I guess you're adding something onto it,
Ah,
so you
So
can
yeah,
continue.
for finance roles, what recruiters expect from you is like 4 5 things. Like first is basics of corporate finance, financial statement analysis, or cash flow analysis. These are all parts of corporate finance only. So like what first is corporate finance, second is like valuation techniques. You should know like the difference between the DCF, the comparable transaction analysis, or comparable analysis of listed firms, and like you should know how to value a startup and how it is different from valuing a mature firm. That thing, apart from valuation corporate finance, you should also know the industry knowledge. By industry knowledge means knowledge of a chemical industry or a real estate industry or a fintech industry, etc. Like if you have a knowledge of 2 to 3 industries, like you can like you can have your complete interview on this. Like for if I talk about my one of the internship interview, which was Everstone Group, like the interview span across for around 1 hour, and for all the 1 hour we discuss only about fintech industry. So like having a knowledge of 2 to 3 industry will give you a talking point for the interview. Along with that, like they can expect you to pitch a particular stock during the interview or a startup. So you should have 2 to 3 startup pitches ready or a stock pitches ready during the interview. So like corporate finance, valuation, industry analysis, and the last is like basics of macroeconomics. So for macroeconomics, like you don't need to study anything, just need to follow the recent market trends from Bloomberg or Economic Times, Wall Street Journal. So that should be enough.
Okay, I think that we are clear with the essential skill sets in all the profiles that we have on the panel today. So I guess we can move on to the next question now. Okay, so this question is for all the panelists. So, what resources should we follow to get into finance, data, software, consult, as well as product profiles, like the resources that we can start with? Anyone can start. Let's say Keval. Keval, can you start?
I think I. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Yeah. All right.
So for finance, like as I mentioned the essential skills earlier in the previous question, for corporate finance, like the resources can be the CFA books, like those are sufficient for the interview. For valuation techniques, like there's a playlist by Ashwath Damodaran. There are 23, 24 videos, I guess. Like that is enough for valuation. Or if you want to study more, then you can refer to some websites like Mergers and Inquisitions, Wall Street, Mojo, etc. For industry analysis, like you can refer to reports from Avendus Capital or from some renowned rating agencies like CRISIL, ICRA, S&P Global, Moody's. And for stock pitches or startup pitches, like there's a website called Trendline. Search brokerage reports there you can find the brokerage reports from multiple mutual fund houses, so you can refer that for preparing a stock pitch. And for startup pitch, like you can refer the investment thesis by some well-known VC firms like Elevation Capital, Bloom Ventures, A16Z, Bessemer Venture Capital. So you can refer that for preparing any startup pitch or preparing your investment thesis. And for macroeconomics, I said this in earlier question only, like you just need to follow news channels like Bloomberg, Economic Times, Wall Street Journal, uh, even newsletters by FinShots and Ken is also very useful. So yeah, that's all the resources needed for finance.
Okay. Kinjal, can you add on like after the ML and DL part more data as well?
Sure, sure. So for the ML and DL part, so firstly, the thing is you just have to get very comfortable with the math side of the things. Okay, so there's this coding and all that's obviously involved there, but the thing is, just don't directly jump into the implementation part before you don't know what you're doing, right? You need to develop the intuitive idea behind anything that goes. So just do the math side of the things. So Stanford has all these lectures on MLDL, natural language processing, and computer vision. So those are what I feel. If you want to go into ML research, those are an absolute must. Like you need to develop these fundamentals before you dive into the coding part of the things. Now, once you have these up, you just now what you do is just open Kaggle, just like get comfortable with some basic projects on, let's say, the household price prediction project. Kaggle is basically the site which has all these ongoing competitions, projects, and everything. And there are notebooks and all as well provided with it. Just go through those notebooks. So at the beginning, all of it would be a bit hard to comprehend, but once you get comfortable with it, it would definitely reflect on you. And so there are these frameworks. There's this PyTorch, there's TensorFlow, there's Scikit-learn. So these things, getting comfortable with these things are an absolute must if you want to bag an off-campus intern in data. So all of your work would be heavily based around these frameworks, and it's just Kaggle would be a good place. And also another thing that you need to get used to is reading research papers. So again, so if you just open a research paper and you just go through the abstract section, you're able to follow till the abstract section, and then comes the heavy maths part, and everything else comes, and you just it's too much to comprehend for you suddenly. So just get comfortable in reading research papers. Like you don't have to get everything in one go. Like you have to read it multiple times, make a small note of things and stuff. So reading research papers, then just follow that research up with, if that research paper has a code, has an open source code attached with it, just go through it, get comfortable with reading code bases and all. So yeah, these things would be stuff that you should do.
For software, can you please talk about the software part?
Yeah. So basically, I think there are a couple of different skills for software selection processes. So for a lot of companies, there is a DSA requirement. So I think if you have a lot of time and if you can like muster the interest, you should probably start competitive programming relatively early, like I'd say 4 to 6 months before when you're applying. So you can start with like platforms like Codeforces, CodeChef. AdCoder is a pretty underrated one and it has relatively more relevant problems. So that is something which I'll recommend. If you have relatively less time like I did, I basically did not prepare for DSA a lot. So for DSA, you can try LeetCode and InterviewBit. They help you get up to speed relatively faster. And lastly, if you have even if you don't even have that much time, I'd recommend that you take up one of the paid courses. Currently, AlgoZenith is fairly popular in KGP community. It's something which I use myself, and it's very good to cover things faster and exhaustively in certain sense. So for DSA, it sort of just depends on how much time you have. If you don't have enough time, it's good to go for resources which cover things exhaustively and fast. And secondly, come the CS fundamentals part. It's best to go through the playlist of lectures. So for OS networks and databases, if you can find the time to go through a playlist from, let's say, NPTEL or let's say MIT, Stanford. So there are a lot of lectures available. If you can go through one of them, that would be the best. If you cannot go through, let's say, one of them, it would be good through, let's say, brush across some slides on the exact same topic. So that is what you should do for the CS fundamentals. Now, lastly, coming to relatively more important part for most startups is actual development experience. So a lot of startups specifically want you to have development experiences generally in three kinds of frameworks, especially with respect to backend. There is Python frameworks like Flask and Django. There are startups which have their code base in JavaScript, Node.js, and there are startups which have their code bases in other languages like Go. So it's good to have two, three projects at hand with one or two of these frameworks. And with respect to the startup you're applying to, that project can have a lot of value. So to learn these things, it's basically like learn by doing, like completely. You go through the documentation, you get some idea of what's going on, and then you try to build something out. And as you're building things out, you basically come across problems, and that is where the learning happens. So you can learn these things by building projects basically. And I think the same basically also goes for front end. You can use various JavaScript frameworks to build various projects, and that's something which can help you. So to summarize, there is DSA. Depending on the amount of time, you should choose your resource wisely. Second is computer science fundamentals. If you're targeting relatively high-paying companies off campus, it's good to have this knowledge, and the best sources going through playlists from NPTEL and MIT and similar sources. And lastly comes actual development experience. For that, the best way to cover is building your own projects.
Sure. Roshni, could you share the resources on Consult as well?
Yeah, so for consult, there is broadly two kinds of things that you need to master. One is the guesstimate part and the other is the case part. So for guesstimates, there are some good resources like I personally liked Vault Guide. Then there's another resource by London Business School. And there's also one very elaborate guesstimate book by CQ. So I don't know whether a lot of people know about this, but CQ had published it some years back, I think. And I found it good. I mean, that's very relevant to guesstimates and it has a lot of good guesstimates. So these are some guesstimate references that I would like all of you to go through if you are aiming for consult. And the next is the case part. I mean, for cases, Victor Cheng, there are a number of YouTube videos that you can find. Even though I did not really like his approach to solving cases, but you can get a general idea of how cases are solved. And yeah, so for beginners, going through Victor Cheng's videos is a good way to proceed. And after that, there are a number of books. One is IIM Ahmedabad's case book, then there's IIT Bombay's case book, then there's also IIT Madras case book. So what I would suggest is most of these case books do not really have a standard way of approaching a case. I mean, the way of solving a case in the IIT Bombay case book is very different from how you solve a case in an IIT Madras case book. So even if you're referring to different books, make sure that you are sticking to one approach throughout. you are solving whichever approach you like, refer to all the books first, and whichever approach you find convenient to follow that throughout. Just refer to the cases, problem statements that are given, and try to practice the cases with your peers and your seniors. And even if if you are lacking time and you are not really comfortable with practicing with other people, or you do not have people to practice with, you can also practice alone. So think from the idea of the interviewer as to what are the relevant questions that are actually pertinent to the problem that you are tackling. So ask yourself why this can happen and why that can happen. So all these questions, if you have an answer in your own mind, I'm pretty sure that the interviewer, even if he asks you any questions, you will be able to answer that. So for cases, there are two different kinds of cases. One can be a market entry case or a profitability case. Both have a fairly different way of approaching them. First, in cases, the first approach should be judging whether it's a profitability or a market entry case, and that's pretty straightforward. I mean, from the interviewer telling you the problem statement, you can figure it out in a few seconds. After that, there is like you need to follow a MECE approach and try to explore all the possibilities that can lead to you getting the solution of the case. So those kind of approaches you need to master by practicing a lot of cases. There's no other way to go about it. The more number of cases you practice, the more comfortable you get with it. And even if it's not any conventional case like a profitability or a market entry case, for example, you are posed with an unconventional case which you have not encountered before, those kind of cases actually give you an idea as to how you can, even if a new case comes in front of you, how you can tackle that. So yeah, all these resources, I mean, by London Business School, by the World Guide, then there's the guesstimate guide by CQ. And I would suggest that master guesstimates first and then only go to cases, because guesstimates kind of give you a rough number which you can back up in your cases as well. That they help you to get a preliminary idea on how to approach cases as well. So master guesstimates first and then only go to cases, in my opinion. For cases, as well, as I mentioned previously as well, IIM Ahmedabad's casebook, then IIT Bombay's casebook, IIT Madras casebook, and yeah, Victor Cheng's videos as well. So a lot of cases, practice a lot of cases, and I'm pretty sure that you'll get comfortable with the course of time. So yeah.
Vishal, now could you share the resources for product as well?
Yeah, so for the PM roles specifically, I take it in two ways. One is the technical requirements and other is the non-technical requirements. So for technical requirements, you just need to know the basics of SQL and basics of Python, right? So for the Python, as these folks have already mentioned, there are a few resources you can go through. But apart from that, for the SQL, you can go through that SQL Lead Code 50. It will give you a good exposure to SQL. And for the preparation part, you can go through the W3 schools SQL part, right? So these are the technical requirements basically. And talking about the non-technical requirements, so that usually comes up with time. Like nobody can just start preparing for PM and become a good PM in, let's say, 2 to 3 months. So you need to have at least 1 to 2 years of exposure to the company, to the various products in the market, how they actually function. So that thing usually comes with the time and comes with exposure. So you should definitely have some good knowledge of things like how to apply frameworks like prioritization frameworks and RICE frameworks uh, while uh, while prioritizing between the features, right? Apart from that, you can go through some good questions on PM School. PM School is having their YouTube channel. You can go through their explainers playlist for the initial part when you are just preparing for the role, and you can go through case studies uh, on the product folks and PM School, right? So PM School posts their weekly challenges on their website. You can do that particular case study challenge and put up that case study challenge on their website. Apart from that, a few type of questions that you can generally practice is the root cause analysis, product design question, product improvement questions, and the guesstimates, which are basically the initial requirements. And if I talk about how are you going to use these resources, so don't just when you're watching some, let's say, case interview or let's say some case study on some in some book. So just don't read that particular thing or just don't watch that particular thing. You just need to develop that approach. So just pause that whenever the question pops up, pause that particular screen and try to solve that question in your own way, and then compare uh, what what can be the best way to approach this particular thing, right? So just doing thing will make you a good PM, not by learning from good books or anything. And for books, you can, like I'd say, you can go through some books like Gail Lackman, which is a good book. And there's this book, Tech Simplified, Swipe to Unlock, which will give you a good exposure to how systems work, how do different apps work. Because for the PM role specifically, I'd say uh, you should start questioning every product. Why? Like, why some things are happening. Why has Swiggy launched this particular button? Like, why have YouTube launched this shorts? And so when you start asking questions like why, so you'll kind of search these things in Google. You'll get good exposure to how do products work, how do algorithm works, how do Facebook, Spotify, and these Tinder algorithm works. So it will give you kind of good exposure to the technical side of the PM roles too. And you can, for staying updated with the industry, you can follow some good channels and pages like FinShots or Inc 42. You can go through the various startups of Y Combinator, what products are they building, right? And there is there's this book for the PM too, right? As Roshni mentioned, so it's developed by CQ only. So they are having a good collection of PM interview questions. So you can go through that particular list to prepare for the role. And I missed this book too. This is I'd say Decode and Conquer. Yeah. So you can go through that book just before your interview. You don't need to go through them in the initial part of your preparation. Just but go through that book before your placements, I'd say. So that's all about the PM roles, I'd say. And there's this one good book too, which is the name is Traits of a Good and a Bad PM. So for the initial part of preparation, it will give you a good exposure to PM roles. So I'd say go through this book too.
Thank you everyone for sharing the resources. I guess we can move to the next question now, and the next two questions are profile based, so to them as well. Okay, so this is for Keval, based on finance profile. What were your key strategies for acing finance interviews, and what specific resources mentioned did you find to be the most helpful ones?
So for finance interviews, like there's such no specific strategy. Like if you have strong command over what all skills I mentioned above, that corporate finance, valuation, uh, industry knowledge, macroeconomics, recent market trends. So like if you have very strong knowledge of all these skills, along with that, some standard puzzles from 50 challenging problems and heard on the street. So like this much should be enough to ace the interview, because there isn't much which can be asked beyond this. So I think so like this is enough for your for acing the interview. Sahil, you are on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you, Keval. I think that we can move to the next question related to another profile now. This question is for Yatendra. What are some of the projects, hackathons, and competitions? Sorry, this for Kenjal.
Sorry, this would be
What
fun,
are
yeah.
what are some of the projects, hackathons, and competitions that give an edge for off-campus interviews in data?
Sure. So, okay. So these are entire sections on your resume, right? Projects, hackathons, competitions, and all. And definitely winning them would be a major spike on your resume. So, regarding projects, what I'd suggest is, there's this site called Papers with Code, right? So, but Papers with Code, so what's this specialty in that is it has papers which has their code basis open source, right? So what you can do is just pick up a paper from there. Uh, or maybe just go through several papers from there, select your pick. Like there would be some papers that would be appealing to you, right? You would be able to follow what's happening in that particular paper. So just have your picks and then go to their code bases. Just see the how exactly the codes are written, right? It's not generally done in a notebook and everything's there. No, it's more of a project-like structure, right? There are different Python script performing certain tasks, right? And it's written in a proper project-like manner, right? So get comfortable with it. Just start learning how to interpret these code bases, right? So that would be a huge help, because most of the work that you would be doing in these internships, right, is that you'll be given reference GitHubs and all, and you'll have to firstly understand their code bases, right, and then you'll have to build out of them. So you have to develop this habit in you of understanding these repos. So once you have these papers and you have these, so you have a repo selected, what you do is just understand that repo. And now comes your part. Just add some modifications to it, just some slight upgrades and stuff like that. Go through its issues section, find what else can you add to this. Now, once you do that, just build on top of the project that you picked from the repo. Now, just you can use that as a self project. Maybe it would be better than just picking up any random notebook from somewhere. So in this way, you'd be actually, so it's an actual proper project that's been out there, right? So this is for the projects part. Okay, regarding competitions. So firstly, there are two types of competitions. One that you would be seeing on Unstop and all, Hacker Earth, Unstop and all, and the other would be research-based competitions, right? So there's this site called Coda Lab. So it has these research-based competitions. So okay, not only you'd be getting the prize money in these competitions, you would also have the opportunity to present your solutions in top-tier conferences. So, and if everything goes right, you might have a paper out or something like that. So that would be, apart from winning the challenge, having a paper out with that would also, it would give 2 spikes to you, right? So that's so the site's called Coda Lab again, and you could check out, it would have all these challenges, right? Let's say image segmentation challenge or some object detection challenge or something like that. So this site is there. Apart from that, Unstop and Hacker Earth are definitely there. There's American Express doing its yearly campus Super Bowl challenge. You could take part in general championship and all. So inter-IT you can take part. So just take part in these challenges and competitions. You'll get this experience of participating in a hackathon. Also, there's one by KDAG at the end of the year. It's called Data Science Hackathon, Kharagpur Data Science Hackathon. You could look forward to it as well. So yeah, that's about it.
Okay. Since we are clear about the data part, I think we can move to the next question then. Okay, so this question is for Yatendra. What projects should we have in our CV, and how much does CP and DS actually matter in off-campus interviews?
Okay, so basically one thing, I'll start with the second part here. How much does CP and DSA matter for off-campus interviews in software? One is pretty less as compared to on-campus. Like off-campus interviews at times do not even have DSA. Sometimes when they do, it's still relatively less as compared to, let's say, the on-campus counterparts. But I'd still say that you should try to solve up to lead code medium. Easy medium type questions for off-campus interviews specifically, because again, in a lot of companies you can expect to give a test. In that case, somewhat serious preparation of DSA and CP will be required. But again, as a rule of thumb, it will all be much less as compared to when you're doing it on campus. Now, coming to projects, again, it's good to have a project with a professor or an internship over a regular self project. It's just how basically the perception works. Secondly, it's good to have internships in relatively known brands. Now, I think this is right. When this is out of the way, I think a lot of this is fairly known to most of the people here. One thing to add is when we are talking about self projects, right? It is mostly determined by the relevance your self project has to the company. As previously mentioned, like let's say they're looking for Golang people and you have Golang in one of your self projects. So that is the kind of thing which you can try to target specifically, like cater your resume to. And even if you don't, a good rule of thumb is to have projects which are less common. If let's say recently what ended up happening is, I think a lot of the people had very similar projects and software in the CV. Everyone has a Rubik's cube solver and
a TF-IDF project and so on. So that sort of thing is generally fairly detrimental to your CV. On campus or off campus, that is there. One thing which I like to suggest is try to find projects on like projects and internships on other websites, not as the main off campus internship that you're targeting, but as some sort of like stairway to that. So QVET Tech, startup by KGP alumni, like recent KGP alumni, can provide you simple internships, like not too fancy or anything, and but they can actually give you a very good project to write on your CV, and you can move ahead with that. Promeo, like a company I'm recently working for, actually provides student projects as well. So they're still getting there, right? Like the production is going to release in a bit, but they'll feature some pretty good projects, so you can take those up. You should reach out to your professors. You should reach out to your seniors actually. Seniors are quite often working on projects and startups or on their own, or research projects and publications with professors and so on. So in that cases, you'll get projects which will have higher weightage in certain sense. Like in any of these cases, be it QVET, Romeo, professors, seniors, and that will fare better for you as compared to, let's say, a self project. So I think that is all I have to say about this.
Thank you, Atendra. I believe that since the part on software of campus interviews is clear, we can move to the next one. Okay, so the next question is about consulting. Rosni, we'd like you to answer it. Can you provide insights into the case interview process by including your approach to solving case and resources you found helpful?
Yeah, so I think I covered the resource part already. So I'll maybe share how I approach a case. So I'll maybe give an example of a market entry case, how I generally perceive it and how I go about solving it. So market entry cases are basically when the client is looking to launch a new product in the market and he's trying to analyze the feasibility of whether his launch and whether his product will be perceived well by the masses and whether it would be a good investment to go by. So how do you go by it? I mean, you ask firstly you ask a few preliminary questions to the interviewer who is taking your interview, like what is the exact product the client is looking to offer, what is its target in the initial years, and is there any kind of specific target that he has in his mind in terms of the market share, or any break even period that he has in his mind, what would be the estimated investment cost that he can afford to have, and obviously what are the geographies which he's looking to target, because my solution can be very, very specific to geographies. So if he says that he has a target in his mind for capturing a significant amount of market by this much amount of time, then you analyze the profits that the client is expected to have in those many number of years. And then you calculate the possible market size by a guesstimate. As I mentioned already, I mean, for solving cases, you should first master the art of handling guesstimates properly, since a subsection of solving cases comes down to solving guesstimates properly. So after you estimate the market size, you are like, yeah, so if you have a significant amount of market size, then then you can say that if I invest in the product and if the product is perceived well by the masses, then it can target this much amount of audience and it would be profitable. And then after that, it comes down to the value chain, how the value chain is going to work, how are we going to manufacture the product, and obviously the fixed costs and the variable costs that are associated with the product. How are we going to like manufacture? I mean, will we kind of acquire any kind of existing R&D facilities, or will we set up our own factories? How are the distribution channels distributed over the geographies? How would be the marketing channels? Then what kind of USP are we having in terms of the product which we are offering with respect to the competitor products as well? And then, yeah, obviously, the last part comes down to the challenges that we have, the production challenges that may arise, the distribution challenges and the marketing challenges. And then in the end, you basically say that if we are not offering any edge in terms of pricing or facilities, then we have to analyze the possibility of a joint venture or an acquisition of a smaller firm that already has those capabilities in place. And the last part then comes down to pricing the product appropriately as to if you price the product within this range, then your product would be successful and would be perceived well by the masses. Or if it's beyond this range, then it would be declared to be significantly expensive to its counterparts. So yeah, these are the significant, these are the preliminary questions that you should ask, and you should delve deeper into this and solve a market entry case. A profitability case has a slightly different approach, which I won't elaborate right now. So yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Roshni, for sharing how you take a toll on such questions and like helping your juniors get a perspective on the case as well. Uh, I believe we can move to the last question of the session then. Okay, so this question is for Vishad. What are some of the common challenges that you faced while preparing for product management role, and how have you tackled them?
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of reiterate this question. Firstly, like I just know, tell you some challenges, but those are not challenges actually. So firstly, if I talk about the product role, so that is the lack of awareness of the role, right? So people are usually hesitant to go into product roles. They feel that product managers do nothing. So that was one of the uh, a thing which is kind of fit into people's mind, that product roles, product managers generally do nothing. They just talk to the people and get their things done. So that's not the case actually. You do a lot of technical stuff, you do a lot of background research, and then you arrive at a decision. You talk to the stakeholders, and you kind of uh, tell why a product should be launched, why it should not be launched, and you are a complete owner of that particular product, right? So if I talk about the awareness part, so you can definitely reach out to your seniors any day. We have a good pool of seniors working in various good startups as APMs, senior product managers, product managers, right? So you can reach out to these alumni to know what this role actually has, because in product role there is no level you can define for a particular person. You can even get some good knowledge from your juniors too. You can good get some good knowledge from your seniors too. So talking to the people, that's one of the key thing required for the product role. And apart from that, getting an initial internship was kind of a bit, you can say, hard for me, because I did not have any previous internship before my first internship, uh, as it says. So you can always leverage your POR, whatever you're having, whatever work you have done till now in the campus, to show in how many activities you have engaged in campus, in what activities you have shown leadership skills, time management skills, or you can say some event management skills. So leveraging those PORs into your corporate experiences, convert your campus activities into corporate experiences. So put forward, like let's say what I do is, let's say if I've worked in a particular XYZ cell or society and organized one event. So what I'll say in an interview is, like let's say I worked in this particular cell. So first what we do is some background research, that is this event really required or not. Then we arrive at a decision that hey, people kind of need this particular event and we should do this particular event. Then we move forward with conducting that particular event. We arrange logistics, we coordinate with the design team, we coordinate with the web team to get our thing listed on our website. Then we kind of establish that particular event, conduct that particular event. After that, we take feedback from the people, that did they actually like that event or not. So that is what product manager's role revolves around. So firstly, you do some background research, that what is currently going on in the market. Why should we build this particular product? Or then we kind of do some market research, computer analysis to identify what our competitors are doing in the market. Let's say if XYZ seller society of KGP is going to conduct some event, so they are going to look at other IITs, what they are doing, what their sales and societies are doing. Are they doing the same event? So they are going to kind of take some insights from them, learn from them, and then improve our event. So that's what a product manager's role revolves around. You take insights from the competitors and then improve your product continuously. Then when you launch your product, after that you take feedback from the people. So that's what I've did in my campus involvement. So try to leverage your managerial skills, your PORs into your corporate experiences, I'd say, and talk to as many people as you can. Like leverage your alumni network. Just start from the day itself. Start reaching out to the people. Just randomly ping them. Like, hey, I want to discuss about this particular startup you are working in. What's your day-to-day work? What product are you working upon? So as much as you stay aware of what's going on in the market, your knowledge base and your exposure to this particular field will start getting widening up, and eventually you will grow up as a good PM. So there's no good or a bad PM, I'd say. It's all about experiences, and it's all about the time that you are giving to yourself to learn about the product management, and just start discussing why with the people, that why things are happening in particular apps, or why Spotify has this icon on first page itself, why not on the second page? So that all comes to the user experience, right? So start asking why to the apps, like why this app is having this particular thing. So you can use Google efficiently, you can use ChatGPT efficiently to know answer to these particular stuff. You can, as I previously mentioned, you can go through some good books. Swipe to Unlock, I'd say, is a must read for the PM role. So you'll develop a good understanding of how do actually products work. Like what goes on when you just order something on Swiggy. So like what happens at the back. So it will tell you all the algorithms, all the processes, all the interactions that happen at the back. So go through these good books to develop an understanding of the product. So that's what I'd say will make you a good PM.
Thank you, Vishal. Thanks again for actually clearing out what product management role actually stands for and what is the work that PMs do. So once again, I'd like to thank all of the panelists for answering each and every question with proper clarity and understanding. Now we would like to hand over the stage to our audience. Anyone who wants to ask a doubt can just drop a message in the chat box and then we'll check it out. Keval, this question was for
I
you.
guess there's one
Okay.
question for me. What projects could be included when preparing for finance profiles? So, like I already mentioned, like you can do a equity research project where you can do 2-3 things, like analyzing a particular mature industry like cement, chemicals, energy, uh, metals, etc. Then doing some competitive analysis for 5-10 companies in that particular industry, and after that preparing a stock pitch for 2 to 3 stocks. That should be for equity research. And for if you are applying for a VC firm, then you might need to prepare a investment thesis on some industries like deep tech, space tech, generative AI, uh, or electric vehicle industry or SaaS industry, something. So for that, again, same thing, prepare an investment thesis. For that, you can refer uh, investment memos by some VC firms, which I already mentioned earlier, like Bloom, Elevation, Bessemer, A16Z, or Premji Invest, etc. And after that, you can come up with 2 to 3 startup pitches. Also, you can there are startup pitches available on the website of these firms only. So like you can prepare from that too. Yep.
Thank you, Keval. Angel, there's another question regarding data for you in the chat box.
Right. So the questions, if for publication, right. So okay, it's a core publication, and I think what he tries to say is that MLDL. Okay, it's an application of MLDL in core is what the publication is about, and can you put that in your resume? You definitely can put that in your resume. Just while making the pointers, just be more focused on the ML side of the things more. Like just don't mention core terms there, and or terms that heavily focus on core, because then you would be using this to pitch for your data internships, right? So just focus on the ML side of the things more when you're writing that down on your resume. And publication in core with MLDL is perfectly fine. Yes.
All right. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, I think that the audience doesn't have questions. So I think this was quite a great session.
Sahil, there's one question. Wait.
Okay, sorry.
If I want to get into derivative sector for finance placements, like what projects could be useful? See, for derivatives, like it's more into quant side. Like I would say Kinjal would be better to answer this question, because I am more into corporate finance side and derivative side. There are hardly very one or two firms only that comes to campus for hiring. So Kinjal.
So like yeah, I think even so I'll like answer this. Yatindra can obviously come in later since he was also talking about HFTs earlier. So it's more of when these companies come, they focus. So when they come for hiring during internships or for placements, or even when they hire from outside, they morely focus on the aptitude of the person more. So in the interview rounds, you'll have all these puzzles, probability questions, and CP questions and all. I don't think they expect any quant knowledge from you or any past quant experience or something like that. I mean, having that is nice. You could discuss that with the interviewer, but obviously they'll prefer someone with a better aptitude than you. Yeah, Yatindra, you can add to this.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Actually, like I am unaware of any company which is hiring quant people, derivatives people, or any other security specifically, or alternative assets or whatever, that they hire from an undergrad program and expect you to know anything on the like actual finance sides or derivative pricing sides. It's mostly aptitude. Certain companies actually ask a lot of maths. Like some Indian HFTs like Graviton have a very math intensive selection process, and like similarly some HFTs from outside, like I think Da Vinci has a very huge focus on derivatives. They actually prefer a lot of maths. A lot of other companies, as mentioned, focus very heavily on puzzles. So some of these things vary across the companies, but the general thing, as mentioned by Kinjal, holds true, that it's about aptitude. Like how's your aptitude about general mathematical problem solving, be it puzzles or actual math questions. So quite often it boils down to that. And sadly, one of the other things to like consider here is most companies are highly department biased in certain sense, that the circuital people in most HFTs or companies focusing, let's say, securities, have a very high bias towards circuital departments. So it's easier if you basically target for companies which are relatively known to be more inclusive. Like in this case, Kinjal bagged an internship at DrexQuant. So DrexQuant is fairly open if you have the relevant machine learning skills. What my understanding is, DTL Singapore is relatively open. A senior of mine from a non-circuital department interned at iRage Capital as a quant. So of course, iRage also deals with derivatives and securities. So if that's something you'd be interested in, you should try at iRage. And a lot of companies which are coming from outside India are fairly open towards non-circuital departments. I believe alumni that we have, a senior we have, actually made it to Maverick from a non-circuital department. Or not, I'm not really sure about this, but the thing is, in general, they are relatively more open as compared to Indian HFTs. So that is something also to keep in mind.
Okay, moving on to the next question. What are the projects that I can start on as a beginner in data?
Okay. So yeah, I'll take it. If you're a beginner in data, Kaggle would be your go-to place. Oh, firstly, I'm assuming that you are comfortable in Python, because if you're not, the first thing would be to get your Python basics and fundamentals up. So once you do that, just go on to Kaggle. Just whatever you see at the top there, just open the notebook once, right? And also, so there's this thing called Google Colab. Just So which provides you a notebook-like environment where you could run your codes and stuff like that. So just get comfortable with Google Colab, or there's this thing called Jupyter Notebook as well. And right, so you could just get comfortable with these frameworks once you do that. Just open any project on Kaggle and just start running them cell by cell and just get an idea of what's happening, right? So you don't need to have the syntax up by heart, like you don't need to memorize the syntax. So basically, you just have to develop an understanding of what's happening exactly. How does an ML pipeline look like? What's EDA? What's feature engineering? What's a modeling? What's modeling? What's drawing inferences and drawing conclusions from the output of a model or something like that. Just get a general idea of what a normal ML pipeline looks like. And once you do that, just get on to just start practicing with projects from Kaggle. Once you get comfortable with that, you should, I think, just get on a research intern or something, or just start exploring and reading research papers on your own. Yeah, I think that would be a good plan for you to have.
Sure. Would anyone like to add on? As I believe we can move to the next and perhaps the last question from the chat. How useful are the projects in topics of CS fundamentals? Yatindra, if you'd like to take over.
Yeah, so basically, I'll say very, very useful. This is something which people generally do in my department, actually. So the dual degree people who have had their sixth semester before the CDC, let's say, often tend to include the assignments from the operating systems and networks lab. They are highly systems intensive, CS fundamental based projects. And I know many cases of people who made it to like very good package based HFTs and other very well known companies. And they were asked questions with respect to this, like in all kinds of roles. Like you would basically, of course, expect these things to pop up in a systems role at an HFT. Questions from the CS fundamental based like projects were asked in companies like Sprinkler to a few people, also by Google, and also in a hardware role to one of my friends, basically. So CS fundamental projects can actually play a very big role. One last thing which I like to add is this thing has a very huge impact when you are giving the interview. Right. So if you have a good CS fundamentals project, I'd say good and not something which is a course project. So not a lot of people have the exact same project. In that case, you can have a very interesting discussion that is going on with the interviewer, because a CS fundamental project quite often can act as a gateway to that side, right? So that can be used to showcase your expertise there, and that is a rare skill to have, right? Because a lot of the people, computer science department or otherwise, do not do well in CS fundamentals. So if you can show core competency via a project in that space, which is already rare, and the company, if they need it, like most HFTs do or most well-paying companies do, in that case, you have a heavy advantage over most people.
Okay. Thank you, Yatindra, for answering the question. I guess we're done with the like doubts from the audience side as well. So I think this was a really great session, and we thank you all for getting on board with us. We just one second. All right, this will be supplied in the recordings. We'd like to move on to the panelists if they would if they would like to give any last piece of advice to your juniors who are going to appear to campus internships.
I guess I have one thing to say about interviews. So it won't be long, basically, just one small thing. People generally do not do well in interviews because of issues with confidence. And if, let's say, one question went wrong, then you lose all your confidence, things like that. It's been very common. Luckily, I didn't face in like way too many of my interviews. I did have it once or twice, and it was fairly devastating for me. One thing which I've realized with my experience is interview is like a conversation. So if you can have a engaging conversation with the interviewer, a few mistakes that you make on the way, be it technical or just slurring or things like that, those mistakes get sort of swept under the rug. Like in the CDC interview that I had, which was like the last serious interview which I gave by myself, the interview was fairly informal, like by the end of it, and I was able to direct the conversation to my strong points. So, which is also an important skill. Like, try to direct the interviewer towards things which play in your favor. Like as Kinjal mentioned, publications are a very important part for data interviews. So let's say if you have a publication and it's not being discussed actively, it might be a good idea that you redirect attention there so you can maybe showcase some core competencies that you have. In case of computer science, maybe you have a core competency in databases, so bringing them up in an answer might be a good idea. Lastly, having an informal conversation, like smiling throughout the interview process, or giving descriptive answers, and not looking tense even though you are feeling tense, can be very invaluable skills. Like in that case, the interviewer will have some sort of positive like mental image for you. He has to select someone who has to work as a colleague in his company, at least in certain sense. So no one likes to hire someone who's not fun to work with in certain sense. So if you have a good conversation with them, that's a disproportionate advantage, I'd say, because most people don't realize it how big of a role this thing can play. So that is something which I'll suggest most people should keep in mind.
I'll add on to Yatindra's point that identify the comfort level of your interviewer, because he's the person who's going to judge you whether you'll be in or out, right? So just try to be comfortable with the interviewer. Don't hesitate to ask any questions if you have in between. Apart from that, I'd lastly say that it's CDC internships are not kind of, you can say, end of the world or end of your graduation. So you have a lot of chances after this. So just keep doing your hard work. Feel free to reach out your seniors, your alumni anytime you feel like to. And yeah, you can reach out to me anytime for the product rules or any of the folks amongst us. Thank you.
Just a minor addition to what Vishad and Yatindra just said. Actually, Yatindra already mentioned this point. I'll just reiterate on this. So if there's a certain aspect or a strong point of view that didn't get addressed in the interview, and then you should somehow find a way to bring that up. Like I'll speak from a personal experience while I was giving my CDC interview this time. So I wanted to bring about the fact that I worked as an AI freelancer for a long amount of time. So I definitely knew at a UG level, not many would be doing this. So I wanted to bring that up, and I did bring that up, and we had actually a good conversation over this for around 15 minutes. So, uh, so again, so if if there are things that you want the interviewer to know about yourself, just think about ways you could bring that up. And the first 10 to 15 minutes of your interview, like just try to be as confident and just try to bring a good first impression about yourself there, because how you perform there majorly decides the rest of your interview. Like if you just fail miserably in the first 10 to 15 minutes in your interview, your confidence takes a huge hit, right? And I think that somehow then gets affect. You somehow get affected, and and even in the rest of your interview, it shows somehow. So in the first 10, 15 of the minutes of your interview, it's necessary to make a good first impression of it. Yeah, I think that's
Just a
that's it from my side.
parting, yeah. So just a parting advice from my side as well. For acing consult interviews, make sure that you are first of all confident in the interview. And obviously, I mean, whatever question the interviewer is posing, do not assume that the information which he's providing you to be complete. You need to ask the correct questions in order to extract more information from him. And the way you ask the questions would kind of analyze would kind of prove your ability to arrive at the answer in an efficient way, basically. So if you ask the correct questions, then it is very likely that you'll arrive at the solution of the case very effectively and in a short amount of time. So always make sure that whatever information you're requiring from the interviewer, you ask the question, and if the interviewer thinks that it's not relevant, then he'll tell you that it's not necessary to solve the case. Think in a different approach, but make sure that you do not have anything in your mind, you do not have any hesitation in your mind to ask the question to the interviewer. Be free, just have a normal conversation and think that you're having it with any peer of yours, just discussing a case or any problem which you might have faced in your real life. So yeah, that's what.
Keval, if you'd like to add on anything.
Yeah, so I'll add one thing that like finance role is something isn't something which you can prepare in last 2 3 months. So like it's a 1 2 year journey where you need to stay updated with the markets, have to read newspaper daily for about 1 or 2 year, so that you know a lot about what happened in the market in last 1 year, like during the Russia Ukraine war happened, what happened in the global markets now currently. Uh, Hamas Israel conflict. So, like, if you know a lot of things, so particularly if I talk about on campus internship, there's a GD round for Nomura. So, in Nomura, it's particularly more that whatever you know about global economics in last 1 or 2 year, you can like easily crack that GD. So, like, one thing I would say is keep tracking markets daily. Don't think that in last 1 or 2 months you'll read 2 3 books and you'll get into finance. That is not going to happen. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, panelists. We believe that every student that was present in the meet has got all of their doubts cleared and now has a clear picture in their mind of what to do next. We once again wholeheartedly thank all of the panelists to be ready to spend the time and like guiding their juniors out patiently with all their queries. We also thank the students for taking time to attend the session and making it more worthwhile for us as well. So I believe this brings us to the end of off-campus talks. I would like to appeal to all the students that never give up. Plus, every closed door paves the way to a brighter future ahead. Uh, I guess this is the end of the session. This is Sahil Asawa signing off on the behalf of Student Welfare Group IIT Kharagpur. Thank you for attending the session.